Hey guys, welcome back to the Rabbitat Homestead. My name's Ashley. Well, today's video I just wanted to go through and talk about pretty much the basic things that you need to start raising rabbits. I'll go through a little bit about our experience when we first started out and kind of share with you some of the things that we learned. So I brought a lot of stuff out here and I'm just going to go through each item and just kind of explain why they're important and why you need them, and also the different options that you have. Now, the first thing you're going to need when you start raising rabbits is a rabbit hutch. So when you're looking for a rabbit hutch, when we first started out, we found a rabbit hutch on Craigslist, bought it for pretty cheap, and it just wasn't very good quality. I think they bought it off of Amazon, and even ones that you can buy at some of the stores, farm stores, they're not that great of quality. It just really depends on your needs and what you're looking for. We needed heavy-duty hutches, so we went ahead and made our own. And by making it ourselves, we were able to make it so that it fit our needs for raising meat rabbits. As you can see, we live in the woods, we have a lot of predators, and we also have harsh winters here. So we were able to make it work for us. So when you're starting out, you might have to look into building your own hutch. I definitely recommend building your own. So a lot of the things that I'm going to be talking about today is, what I've learned in my preference, and some of the things I might say might not necessarily work for you. It really just depends on your situation and what you're looking for when you're raising rabbits. So the first thing you need is a hutch. You can see our hutches that we built. And the next thing you're going to need is a way to give your rabbits water. So in the warmer months when we're above freezing and we're not getting any freezing temperatures, we use these water bottles. These are my favorite water bottles, and they come with something to hold it up when you're putting it on the hutch, on the wire. And I've tried so many different water bottles, and I finally found these, and I love these. I think these are the best. They hold a half gallon of water. They don't leak. And the trick for them not to leak is to squeeze them and then tip them over while you're squeezing it, and they won't leak. It just kind of sucks the air in and keeps it from leaking. But these are my favorite water bottles. In the summertime, they're great. You just keep an eye on them, make sure that they stay full. Every once in a while, take your finger and tap the bottom, tap this here, and make sure that water comes out. Just when you come out to feed them, make sure it's full and that water's still coming out, because it might get clogged. There might be a little bit of dirt in there or whatnot. So you just want to make sure you check and make sure that they can get water out of it. So those are by far my favorite. And like I said, this is a matter of preference, my opinion, but these are the best I found. I buy them at Tractor Supply, and I think they're about $12 or so. I've tried every water bottle you can possibly think of before I got to these. This is very small, obviously, so it's not really practical for what we need it for. But you can get a lot of different types of water bottles. You can get these. It's kind of hard to get this in on the wire. You have to clip an area so this can poke through, so that's kind of a pain. And then it just has a top lid that opens. It works okay. It's just not the best way that I've found. And here's this one. It's just basically the same thing. It's just a different shape, and it opens at the top. Again, not really my favorite to use. So this one's not bad. If I wasn't able to use these, I would probably use this as my second choice. So the nozzle just twists off and you fill it up. And this is nice because you can squeeze it just like you can with these ones over here. and the suction from squeezing it and tipping it over helps keep it from leaking. So if I had to pick a secondary water bottle, it would be this one. I really don't like the ones that, you know, have the opening at the top and you just close it. So I've tried a lot of water bottles, and these are by far my favorite. They hold the most. They hold a ½ gallon of water, which is a lot. And especially for my bucks, this will last a couple days for them. If I notice that they're not drinking a whole lot of water, sometimes I'll add apple cider vinegar in here, and it kind of encourages them to drink more, and it's also really good for them. Depending on the type of climate you live in, we have really cold winters, so we have to go to water bowls in the winter time because these will freeze if it gets below freezing. So we just use these metal watering bowls. I get them on Amazon. I think they're $1.90 or something like that. They're pretty cheap. And I just fill their waters twice a day, morning and night. Give them not hot water, but warm water, so it takes a little bit longer to freeze. And the ice, if you pound it on the bottom of the hutch, the ice will usually come out pretty easily. And if it doesn't, you can always just make sure you have enough water bowls to replace it and fill it. We don't like to waste a whole lot of water, so we make sure we have plenty of water bowls rather than thawing them out in the sink or running them under hot water. We like to let them sit in the basement and just make sure we have enough so we can just bring another one out and give it to the rabbits. So these are nice to have depending on the type of climate you're raising your rabbits in. And of course they like to tip these bowls over, so it's nice to have something to set your bowls in. My husband made these, and they're really nice. It kind of eliminates the risk. They still tip it over, but their chances of tipping it over, it's not as easy for them. And we're eventually going to make one that holds two, especially for my grow outs, because they get 2 bowls every time I come out and give them water in the winter. So we're going to be making one of those. Just make sure you make the base out of non-pressure treated wood so they don't get sick or anything. Here's another water bowl that we've tried in the past when we were exploring different options to give them water in the winter time. This is a heated bowl. It just has a battery in it, or you could charge it, I think. We didn't end up using it very long because they started chewing on it. Of course, it's made out of plastic, so I don't recommend using any plastic products with your rabbits because they will chew on it. They love to chew on things. So the next thing you're going to need is a feeder. I have 2 different types of feeders that I use. Well, 2 different sizes, I should say. They're the same thing, but they're different sizes. And these are great. I really like these a lot. You can use them on the inside of your hutch like I do, or you can use them on the outside and just clip through your wire so that this piece goes through it. And then as you're feeding them, all you have to do is lift this on the outside and fill it. I don't really like that idea because I'm just afraid that a predator might come by and knock it over, and then there's a big space, big opening in the wire for them to stick their paws through and whatnot. So I don't really like that idea. That's why I keep them inside of the hutch. And also when I'm taking care of them, I have to come and stick my hand in there, and they have to get used to me being inside of the hutch. Whereas if everything's on the outside when I have to take care of them, I have no reason to open this other than to give them hay. And I want my rabbits to be well socialized and used to me. So that's another reason as well. So this smaller one I use for my bucks, and I use for my does when they have no babies with them. The bigger one I use for my grow outs, and I also give it to my does when they have litters with them. And since it's bigger, you just don't have to fill it as often. And for the grow outs, there's quite a few rabbits in the grow out hutch, so it's nice to have a bigger size. So I have a couple of these for my grow out hutches and my does when they have babies with them. So the smaller one's mostly for my bucks and my does when they're not having any babies anytime soon. So the next thing I'm going to show you is hay racks. I'm not a big fan of hay racks. It's really up to you and your preference and what works for you. We've tried a couple different hay racks and none of them, I'm just not really happy with any of them. So what I do is I just put their hay on top of their nest box, or I put it on their resting mat and they eat it from there. But some people like to have hay racks, so I haven't really found one that works for me. And what I will say is I ordered this hay rack off of Amazon, and it's nice because you just put the hay inside here and then this holds it down and they pull from it. But as you can see, they chew on it. And so I try to keep any plastic products out. As you can see, the feeders are metal and the tips of the water bottles are metal. So there's nothing for them to chew on. That's bad for them, like plastic. So I wasn't able to use these very long because they chew on them. You can see the chew marks on it. This is metal. So if I had to use one, I would use this one. And in the past, when I've used this, I've had it in a hutch with a doe and her baby kits. And a lot of times the baby kits will find their way in this and then they'll soil the hay, and it's just not my favorite way. It's just a whole lot easier for me if I just put it on top of their rabbit hutch or on their resting mat. But that's a matter of preference. So here's a couple different options you have for hay racks if you choose to use one. Let's see. So the next thing you're going to need is feed. So we use this rabbit feed. It's a 50-pound bag. So what I will share with you, when we first started raising rabbits, we went to Tractor Supply, and we just go to Tractor Supply because that's the closest farm store that we have closest to us. But we went to Tractor Supply and we were looking at rabbit feed. And the first few times that we bought rabbit feed, Tractor Supply has a whole wall full of rabbit feed, and it's more so for pets. There's a whole section and it's all for pet rabbits. And when we first started raising rabbits, we were buying from that section. We were buying this rabbit feed, which I'll show you here on the screen. And it was very expensive, and it was there wasn't very much rabbit feed in the bag. So we were paying a lot of money for this rabbit feed. And at the time we were raising chickens, so we were buying big bags of chicken feed, obviously, and turns out this rabbit feed is in the end aisle where all the chicken feed is. So it took us probably a month or so of buying that pet feed for rabbits until we finally found this. So don't make that mistake. You know, don't go to Tractor Supply and look at anything pet related because, you know, these are homestead animals. Of course, we love them and we think of them as pets, my breeders, but we want to do this the most efficient way possible, and buying the pet rabbit feed definitely wasn't in our budget. So we were able to get a 50-pound bag at Tractor Supply, and this is what we feed our rabbits. And the price is a whole lot cheaper than what we were buying when we first started out. So don't make that mistake. And then the next thing you're going to need is Timothy hay. We buy our Timothy hay at Tractor Supply as well. And this is the big, you know, the big package that you're going to want to buy, the most efficient package of Timothy hay. I would really like to find a local source for this. I really don't like buying it from Tractor Supply. So I'm kind of exploring different options, but this is what we have right now and what we've been using. And it's great quality. I like it a lot. And you can buy this in the pet area as well, so be careful about that. They sell them in these bags, which is also more expensive. So don't buy those little bags. Buy this. It's a whole lot more efficient. And then you're also going to need aspen shavings, also at Tractor Supply. When we first started out, we were using shavings that we use for our chickens. We were using cedar shavings, and cedar shavings are not good for rabbits. Aspen shavings are non-toxic to rabbits. This is great for their nest box material, for their bedding in their nest boxes. I really like it a lot. It absorbs very nicely. If you were to use just hay, hay doesn't really absorb as well as shavings do. So usually when I make up their nest box, I use mostly shavings, aspen shavings on the bottom, and then I'll put a little bit of Timothy hay in there as well. But yes, you want a nice big bag of aspen shavings, and these are pretty inexpensive. So I definitely recommend that. Now another thing you're going to need is resting mats for your hutch. Rabbits live on wire, and which is great because it keeps the rabbits very healthy and clean. It keeps the rabbit hutch clean, and it makes it easier for you because all you have to do is rake away their waste. So they're not living in any waste or anything, which is really great. But they do need to have a break from being on the wire all the time. It's not good for them to be on wire 24/7. So it's important for them to have resting mats. That way they can have that opportunity to get off of the wire. Now, my rabbits have their nesting boxes, which is a good way for them, but you also want to make sure they have resting mats. Now, I apologize, these are a little dirty because they've been in with my rabbits. But this is just scrap wood, and it's not pressure treated or anything. It's just scrap wood, and we just cut pieces and put it in with them. You can buy resting mats. I've never bought them because I've just always used scrap wood, but that's something, if you wanted to, you could look into for yourself. But the bigger ones, like this is a good piece to go in my grow out hutches. And then I have smaller pieces that I give to my bucks and my does. So this is really all you need. You just need scrap wood. Sometimes they'll chew on it. Sometimes it gets a little grubby because a little bit of waste gets on them. You just got to keep them clean. But make sure that you have some type of resting mat so that they can get off of the wire and you can avoid the rabbits getting sore hocks. Now, speaking about the wire, I just want to take a quick moment and talk about the wire. If you decide to build your own rabbit hutch, the very first rabbit hutch we ever built, we used this wire. And this is 24-inch by 10-foot roll of wire, and it's a half-inch mesh. So this is hardware cloth, and this is what we used for the bottom of our hutch when we made our very first hutch. And what we learned pretty quickly a few months in is this just is not the most durable wire for your rabbits to be living on. It starts to get kind of rusty, and it's very thin. So I recommend a more heavy-duty wire. I do not recommend this, so if you are going to make your own, do not use this. Use this wire. This is much more heavy-duty, and it's thicker. And our rabbits have been living on this for a couple years now, and looking at it now, we don't feel the need that. We don't feel like we need to change it or anything because it's holding up great. I always forget what this is called in the size and dimensions, so I'll make sure that I put that in the description for you. But this is what I would recommend for you to get. All right, so next thing, raising rabbits, there's a lot to keep track of, especially when you're breeding them and you're weaning them and you're processing them. There's just so many dates to keep in mind. So it's really important to have a rabbit breeding log. You can make one up yourself, you can find one online, but get yourself a rabbit breeding log. And for each page, for each doe that you have a log for each doe. And I'll put the name of the doe, the date of birth of the doe. I put the breed date, the nest box date, the expected kindle date, and then I'll write down when the rabbit actually kindled, how many kits she had, how many that we lost from her litter, her rebreed date, and wean date and butcher date. So I definitely recommend having a rabbit breeding log. Very important. You don't want to lose track of your dates and what you should be doing. And especially when the kits are 10 days old, which is something I'd like to add to this log. That's a date you need to keep in mind, because it's very important to make sure that their eyes are open and their eyes are clean, because if you don't, their eyes could get infected or sealed closed, and then you could end up with blind rabbits, and you don't want that. So definitely important to keep track of the dates. You could even use a calendar if you wanted to. It's just up to your preference, but I keep them all in this binder and I just write everything down. So I couldn't stress that enough. Next thing you're gonna need are nesting boxes. So this is what I use to clean out my nesting boxes. It's just a little paint scraper. So this is a nest box that I use for when my kits are older, when they're still with mom, probably when they're whenever they start venturing out of the nest box, that's when I give them this. That way they can easily get back in, and we make these. So you can buy nest boxes at a farm store. Tractor Supply sells them. They're very expensive though. I think the ones at Tractor Supply are $30, where you can just buy a big sheet of plywood and make your own nest boxes for a lot cheaper, and you could have quite a few nest boxes out of one sheet of plywood, which is how we do it. So we make that. We make them a little bit wider than the ones at Tractor Supply, and like I said, we have that lip on it as well. Look at that. Tick season. One really bad thing about New Hampshire. Now let me show you real quick what my rabbits' nest boxes look like when I give them a nest box to kindle in. So these are my kindling nest boxes. This is actually one of our original boxes that we bought starting out. Now we just make our own. So this one's a little bit smaller than the ones that we usually use, but we still use it and it works great. You can tell that they chew on it, so if you make your own, obviously you want non-pressure treated. But we have this larger lip to keep the kits in, and this is what we usually give our rabbits to kindle in. And then later on, a few weeks after they're born, we give them the smaller box so they can come in and out very easily. All right, so we raise our rabbits for meat, so it was important for us to have the items we need to process rabbits. So we have a rabbit dispatcher here. This is we use this as the cervical dislocation method, and we make these. So it was important for us to have this. And then we also have a rabbit hanger that we make as well. So with your rabbits, there's some maintenance that you need to keep up with on your rabbits, and that would be their nails. Their nails grow and they get pretty long. So you want to make sure you have some clippers so you can clip your rabbit's nails every once in a while. They can get kind of long, so make sure you have these. You're going to need them, and make sure you keep an eye on their nails and make sure that they're not getting too long. Let's see, am I forgetting anything? I'm sure I am forgetting something. But really, that's it, guys. You learn as you go, and I kind of shared with you some of the mistakes that we've made. But there's a lot of things that you need. I hope it's not too overwhelming. But, you know, it's just the basics. This is the stuff that, you know, starting out, this is all the things that I would want to have right off the bat. Obviously, you know, the dispatching stuff, you don't need that right away. But I've played around with a lot of the different products that you can get. I know you can get wire nest boxes as well. I've never tried it. And I probably won't because I'm really happy with the plywood nest boxes. I have no reason to switch those out. So, you know, there's different options out there. It's really just a matter of preference and what you prefer and what works for you. Because I know what works for me might not always work for what you have going on. But yes, just be careful about buying the store-bought rabbit hutches. I recommend making yourself a hutch. That way it can be exactly the way you want it to be. Make sure you get the right wire. Get a nice heavy-duty wire for them. You want it to have a little bit of slack. You don't want it to be too stiff for them to walk on. Make sure you have that resting mat for them. Make sure you have nest boxes for them. I give my bucks nest boxes. That's a matter of preference. That's up to you. They don't need to have them, but my bucks, I'll come out here early in the morning and take care of them, and they sleep in it, and I really think they enjoy it, and they never soil it. The bucks are actually very clean. I think they're cleaner than the does are. Unless you have a bunch of males in the grow out hutched, then they can get kind of messy, but I give my bucks their nesting boxes, so I have plenty of those. And like I said, it's a lot cheaper just to make them yourself. Buy yourself a big piece of plywood. You could probably get the plywood for the same price as, you know, a built nest box at Tractor Supply, but if you buy a big sheet of plywood and make them yourself, you can get, you know, more nest boxes from that sheet of plywood, so it's a lot more cheaper. And you can make them the way you want them. Water bottles, like I said, are a matter of preference. These are the best ones I've found. I'll show you a picture of them. And like I said, these are homesteading animals. We love them very much, and we want to raise them to the best we can and help them have the best quality of life we can. So we want them to have, you know, the best options that we can find that's available. So having this half-gallon water bottle is really nice. I know that they enjoy it, whereas, you know, in the wintertime, they get water in the morning and then they could run out. So then we have to come out multiple times, whereas here, they never run out of water in the summer. It's also good to have a brush for them because the rabbits will molt and shed their coat. Earl's done it. He did it last summer. So it's nice to have some type of brush to kind of brush away all that fur. I don't have that with me right now, but that's another good thing to have. But this is just kind of the basic setup. You know, you can modify it the way that you see fit. But I just kind of wanted to go through everything that you need. Hopefully I'm not forgetting anything. So this is the basic setup. This is all the basics that you need to start raising these rabbits. So if you're looking into getting your first trio of rabbits to breed, this is all the stuff that you definitely want to keep in mind before you bring your rabbits home. All right, guys, well, I hope that this information helped you. I hope that you were able to glean something from this video. If you have any questions, let me know. And good luck if you're going to start raising rabbits. It's a joy. I definitely encourage it. I've never regretted starting this process. They're wonderful animals, and you know, they're a joy to have. So good luck starting your new adventure raising rabbits, and I hope that this kind of gives you some insight and kind of helps you out. And hopefully you're able to learn from some of the mistakes that I made that I was able to share with you. But anyways, guys, I will see you guys in the next video, and God bless.